Hey Axis and Allies players, a good captain here. Sorry about the delay. I actually recorded the video but didn't have the right microphone hooked up. And so this is a re-record. And this will be the last video, very likely, for this game. I think it has served its purpose in order to prepare for a video on the main channel regarding dice. So I'll just quickly go through what happened here round by round. I actually won't even go through the details of what happened. There's not too many things to point out. By the end of round 3, the Axis are up by plus 0.633 in accordance with our method of recording the dice. Round 4, I think it's round 3 where it's, is it round 3 where there's a critical? Yeah. So I send the British bomber to Southern Europe. This is a mistake in my opinion. I remember what I was thinking when I did this, but the reason I don't think you should do this as the Allies is because it ruins your end game. When you're trying to catch heavy bombers to, really make SBR, very viable and increase your attack power across the board for all kinds of attacks, not just strategic bombing. Sending your bomber to do a standard SBR when you only have one is not something I think you should be doing. I think it's bad. I think it's bad play, no matter what. If you only have one bomber as Britain or UK, you shouldn't be doing this. But I do, and it gets shot down. And then what else happens? Yeah, here. And then on the U.S. side of the turn, at this point I feel like I'm in for a penny, in for a pound. So I send the U.S. bomber to Germany, and it gets shot down. So 2 out of 2 raids are shot down. And this kind of goes to Super Battleship Yamato's point about certain hits being worth more than other hits. And this is why I when I'm playing Classic at least, really any game with an AA gun like this doesn't come up in 1914, but I like to track AA shots separate, and I also like to track the SBR results because you can undershoot and overshoot with your SBR bombing raids that do get through. So 2 out of 2 were knocked off, and now I have no bombers to play my end game. Not that I can't play an end game, it's just it's offset by tech can be used the turn you make the breakthrough. So now, unless you sequester or unless you set aside some funds to buy a bomber, even if you did get a breakthrough, which is severely reduced, and then buy the bomber on that turn, you wouldn't be able to use it that turn. The earliest you could use it is next turn. This means if you throw away your one and only bomber, you're usually delayed from an SBR using a A-bomb for 2 turns. Again, just reinforcing why I think this is bad strategy if you're the Allied player and only have one bomber on the board. Okay. In contrast, my opponent, I have it here, 10, 11, add 8. He'll do 19. I will throw 19 AA dice at the Axis and score 0 hits. 0 hits. This is bad. 11 of those are going to be SBR. The SBR is going to punch above average, the average rolls almost a 4 when it's usually around 3.5. And then things get worse. So at the end of round 4, it goes from 6.33 in favor of the Axis to 8.26. Round 5, it goes from 8.26 to 10.71. Nice little leap there. Then to round 6, 7, and 8, we get to almost 12, but it kind of evens out at 11.5. It never rolls back. It just stabilizes against the Axis or against the Allies at 11.5 in favor of the Axis. So one bright spot for the Allies is realizing how bad things are going pretty early on. I throw all 30 on tech the turn after my bomber gets shot down and make 1 breakthrough. It's heavy bombers. So I'm obligated to continue the game. This is why I think you shouldn't leave a game of Classic without throwing tech dice into the tray at least once, at least for 1 turn. But the Americans catch the heavy bombers. So this demands how do you layer in tech dice rolls and the probabilities into the overall stats here? And my answer is I don't. This is such a third or fourth front in the game that it's its own department, in my opinion. So the better question I think to ask is what's the average amount of dice needed to be thrown to catch heavy bombers? And my answer is it's about 30 to 36 dice that you need to throw into the tray. So this ends up being kind of the 1 in 6 result, or less than, better than that, more like a 1 in 8 result, where you get it on the first throw with 6 dice. So I got pretty lucky here. I finally have a spout of luck, but I'm very, rather than being able to just run right into dropping an A-bomb on Germany or somewhere where it's useful, I've given my opponent plenty of time to react. There's no bomber on the board. I can't even buy one this turn. So it's going to be round 5 where I purchase one, round 6 where I place one, round 7 where I finally drop a bomb on somebody. That is just a demonstration of why this is such a bad strategy. If you do it in your game, I don't think it's the right move. And it was wrong when I did it as UK. The only reason I did it as US was everything is burning down, so I don't think it really matters what I do. But it did. I shouldn't have. But okay. So this is where we finally get 2 SBR raids that do get through. We undershoot a little bit in terms of SBR, but no big deal. And then we just keep pumping out heavy bombers. Meanwhile, the Japanese side is... he ends up throwing 12 dice and makes, I think, 4 breakthroughs, and none of them are heavy bombers. And so this is where I go back to, I'm going to just fall back to the basics around the dice. We don't care how long it takes to get there until you get there. So if it takes my opponent 30 to 36 dice to finally get heavy bombers, that's all that I'm worried about. The other techs pale in comparison to heavy bombers. So though he got 4 out of 12, and though he is punching above his weight in terms of catching dice for tech, and though he's much, much closer to that tech, believe me, I have personal experience chasing heavy bombers, and never getting it. Okay, I've gotten 5 out of 6 breakthroughs and not gotten heavy bombers, and I've done that multiple times. So until the ball crosses the plate, we're not going to call it a ball or a strike. Okay, we're going to wait for him to get heavy bombers and then look at how lucky or unlucky my opponent was. So what I was doing when I was recording my final video, and I'm real disappointed that the mic wasn't hooked up right, was this move. And this turn, the turn prior, I staged 2 bombers, heavy bombers now, in Alaska. I see here, before the Japanese turn is the best way to look at this. I'm threatening the Japanese sea zone. We are playing with the optional rule that you cannot build any industrial complexes. So Japan's industrial complex is uniquely vulnerable to also needing to have the sea zone be operational or you get suffocated. So, and there's counterplay to this, but generally speaking, I'm trying to put a ton of pressure on this sea zone with my pair of heavy bombers. Right now it's shut down. This requires a response from my opponent. He builds a battleship and puts 4 transports in addition to the one that was there. And this is where the only reason I'm doing this is for kind of an outside, not obvious reason. I am going to do one round of combat against this force. Because why? Because the average roll I'm going to get is 4 out of 6 dice, right? I'm going to get 4 to 6 hits. 4 transports is 32 IPCs. He has 9 pips to throw back, right? 5 transports and a battleship, which is 4 or less. So you'd expect 1.5 kills. Low luck would tell you that is 1.5. You'd roll a dice, and 50% of the times you lose your second bomber. 50% of the time it survives. And this I'm going to use as Exhibit X, because there's so many exhibits, in the low luck lie. Why, if that's true, if low luck is true, why is average attacker units left after a single round of combat 0.67? It should be 0.5 if low luck is true. If you're using low luck, the average attacker units left in a single round of combat with a 9 pip defense is 0.5. Half the time you are going to kill that second bomber, half the time it's going to survive. But with real luck, it's 0.67, and that's my demonstration of the low luck lie. So it's more often than not that the second bomber survives. Again, we don't care about multiple hits here. We don't care about hits from 3 and up, because there's no such thing as a 3 or 4, 5, 6 hits in this battle. It's only does he get the second hit, and odds are against it happening. So I am going, but this is what I'm aiming for. I want to trade 1 bomber, is my hope, and trade it for 4 transports. And I have the Vegas odds. I have the table. It's not that I'm going to win, it's just that I have table odds. So in Vegas, this is the move you make. Okay, in conjunction with that, I'm throwing my 2 other heavy bombers at Germany. And this is what I wanted to record live. It just explodes in my face. Nothing goes to plan, which is kind of the name of the game. At least with this opponent. I undershoot by 1, not panicking, right? Trading a single bomber for 3 transports is still a good exchange. He gets 3 hits. Again, we don't care about the third. It was whether he picked up the second or not. So he fell inside that 33% window where he picks up a second kill. So the minority of it happened there, and it's bad for me. Then over here on the strategic bombing raid, just to make things worse, one of the 2 gets shot down, and there's, I think, just shy of a 31% chance of that happening. So again, another minority event occurred against me, and those 2 together occurring at the same time, I think I can safely concede this game. I'm not going to. I'm going to play this out just another turn or 2 just to make sure it's truly buried. I'd also like to see if or when he gets heavy bombers, but we end the game here. I'll end this video in short video series here. 11.53 in favor of the Axis, my opponent, is the dice swing at round 8. And it really kind of hovered around this area since round 5 and 6, where he was basically 11 points ahead on round 5, nearly 12 points ahead on round 6, and it's stabilized at 11.5. So the dice finally stopped favoring him after the first 5 rounds and stabilized. But given the most recent developments here, and given the experience of my opponent, which cannot be discounted, I'm just going to speak to that very quickly. I don't mind an 11.5 swing against literally anybody else. I'll go to usually a 20 point, something where the dice have to get really bad before I'll throw in the towel. But with Ragnell 804, there's very few, if any, breaks given. And plus he has a lot of experience rolling up, so he knows how to leverage good dice better than anybody I know. I'm not going to be unfair to myself. I probably know how to play from the submissive position better than any other Axis and Allies player, because we seem to find ourselves in this situation quite often. But that's okay. This was still a good game, and I think it served its purpose. So unless something truly interesting happens, which I put this at about a less than 1%, occurrence, but it's happened. This will probably be the last video. Thanks for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye. Sorry, one addendum, as it were. I just want to point out, I'm not lying down when I take an L like this. What I like to do, and this is just pure strategy, having nothing to do with dice statistics and whatnot. What I like to do in this situation is offer battle at up to including 50% and sometimes beyond it. So I'm just going to run up a battle that I offered Ragnell and demonstrate like what I'm dealing with here. So I gave him a battle where he can win 66% of the time, but notice the TUV is negative, right? So this means it's going to cut into those valuable air units, again, to Super Battleship Yamato's point. And so if you want to flip on air retreat when there's air, you'll notice the attacker only wins 26% of the time. So he's going to have to sack a lot of air units to win this, more than likely, right? 75% of the time, it's going to cut into the air units. What happens? Sorry. Boom. All the air units survived. The AA gun completely missed, as we went over, and he cleaned house. So, you know, this is a positive TUV of 23. So I mean, the needle gets threaded for the axis in every situation. Not to be, you know, not to be outdone here. In round 6, I set up yet another one of these. Again, I'm trying to create pressure points on the board where it's just tempting enough, you know, that there's just a reason to attack. I've got heavy bombers. He doesn't. There's pressure on this whole situation to get after the Allies and mop this up. And yeah, and he kind of goes into it. He does what I essentially want him to do. Here I set up a battle that's essentially a coin flip with a, you know, average TUV swing that's towards the center. Average attacker wins towards the center. What happens? Boom, he survives with, you know, extra pieces remaining. I mean, this is 4 ground units and 2 air units, so 6 units altogether, right? And what's the average expected attacker units left if the attacker won? 2. So I'm just getting buried alive. Anywhere I'm setting up anything that has a reasonable chance of success, it goes the other way. Not only that, it goes far over the other way. So not just keep beating a dead horse. Yes, TUV does matter. My dice recording, and I'll make sure to mention this in the primary channel video, my dice recordings don't really account for that. I don't care to, because I'm pretty good at making mental notes about, you know, AA guns, SBR runs, and then, of course, what I call set piece battles. In fact, I might mention that in the primary channel. Anytime I'm doing something like that, where I'm doing anything other than a blocker fight, I call it a set piece battle. Like we are going to fight on terms that we've obviously both agreed to. So if you're playing online, it's probably not 100% for either side. Neither of those battles were foregone conclusions. Ragnell took that because he felt like he was under pressure from the heavy bombers to get to end this thing, or risk the game. You know, if it went against him, yeah, he was making a weighted calculation. If it blew up in his face, he could give me the game, but he wanted to go while he felt he had the advantage before the heavy bombers overwhelmed him. So both those critical battles went his way. Everything else was pretty much blockers and mop up, and we already reviewed the last battle. So that's all. Thanks for watching. All the best, and bye-bye.